surrounds us.
Your
light surrounds us. Your light surrounds us. Your light surrounds us. Your light surrounds us.
every one of us,
Your light surrounds us.
every being,
Your light surrounds us.
not one left out.
Your light surrounds us. Your light surrounds us. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato sama sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato sama sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato sama sambuddhassa. Saranam gacchami, dhammam saranam gacchami, sangham saranam gacchami, dutiyampi buddham saranam gacchami, dutiyampi dhammam saranam gacchami, dutiyampi sangham saranam gacchami, tatiyampi buddham saranam gacchami, tatiyampi dhammam saranam gacchami, tatiyampi sangham saranam gacchami.
This is when Venerable would say, could you just move over a little bit this way? Can you just move over? It was so important for her to be able to see everyone. And that I don't profess to be venerable or even close, but I feel the same way. We're here to be together, and so it's important to be able to see each other. So good afternoon. On behalf of Heartwood Mandala, I would like to welcome all of you here in this church and the Mahasangha who are live streaming. How lucky are we that we can bring the whole world in. I got a call this morning from India saying, what was that connection there? We're here to honor the life and teachings of our abbot, teacher, and spiritual community friend, Venerable Dr. Pannavati Bhikkhuni Mahateri. It's amazing that we are here today. There were a number of times over the last few years that we thought, and she thought, this is it. And yet, she persisted. She seemed to always come back to continue. Until on February 26th, she finally did take that last breath. And there was joy, at least for me, to know that she was finally able to release that body that caused her so much trouble. So we know that Venerable had a very full life. Did you hear me say full life? Who could keep up with her? You will hear from her daughter, Atasha, of the very full life before she entered the Buddhist path. You will hear from those who have known her since her arrival in Hendersonville. We will share some of her music, her life over these last years. 20 years ago, the Venerables Pannavati and Pannadipa moved to Hendersonville. It was here that Venerable continued her life's work as it unfolded in North Carolina with Embracing Simplicity, Heartwood Refuge and Retreat Center, and Heartwood Mandala. Kay Meckley, their very good and faithful friend, followed from Maryland to support them. And with clear and courageous hearts and the support of Kay, they proceeded to follow the dream of bringing the Buddhism and the Dharma to this area and beyond. Over those years, she moved this spiritual community through homes and buildings, always with tireless dedication and with compassionate service, locally, nationally, and across borders. Homeless youth, the bakery, interfaith dialogue, migrant services, and the Dalit communities in India, to mention a few. She worked to strengthen the Bhikkhuni lineage by supporting ordinations and practice in places where doing so required courage and risk. We acknowledge that vast, generous work today without attempting to catalog it all. We would be here for days. But that being said, it has all reached into the lives that she touched and the communities she supported, and helped to form. At this time, I would like to recognize all those who are here whose life she has touched. First, I invite the family to please stand and remain standing. I invite the monastics in Rinpoche, represented here, to stand and remain standing. I invite the local Sangha to stand and remain standing. I invite the Dharmacharyas and other students from near and far to stand and remain standing. I invite all those who considered Venerable a spiritual friend or friend to stand and remain standing. And that would be just about all of you. I acknowledge and recognize all those online and those who could not be with us today. Now, Look around. Look at this. Taking a deep breath. And it's not just within this building. We have many who are live streaming. Those who we can't see that are standing with us today. This is the impact and the thousands of individuals and groups that are seen and unseen. What a view from here. It's colorful. You may be seated. Thank you. Now, we all have stories of how we met Venerable Pannavati, and not just about how we met her. How some of us studied with her, engaged through community here, and in so many other places. As many of you know, I was her assistant for the last 8 of the last 10 years. I met Venerable while visiting a friend in Seattle, Washington, who said, "There's a new teacher to me. He's giving a community talk. You want to go?" I said, "Sure." I'd been looking for a group to go to India and just couldn't find the right fit. This story is one I've shared many times. As I was walking out, there was a card on the side table. And I picked it up, and it said, "Service work in India." I'm like, whoa, there it is. And as I turned around to talk with her about it, she was standing right there. I had left her on the dais talking to people. She was right in front of me. That won't be the first time that happened. And I said, "I'm interested in this." And she said, "And I'm interested in you." Now, if that doesn't knock socks off, what does? The story is one that I have shared again and again because it was a brilliant way to be introduced to Venerable Pannavati. I thought it was serendipitous, but it really wasn't. So there was India, in my first trip right after ordaining, when I wasn't yet adept in putting on robes, and I'm not to this day, that she began her first formal lessons, like telling me as we were landing that I would be greeted by people as soon as I got off the plane, who would be requesting blessings. And this is what I said to her. "We just spent 27 hours on a plane, and you're telling me this now?" And that was how many of my lessons took place. We were also bumping along on that same trip down a dirt road, and she was sitting on one side, and the attendant was on the other, and she hands me a piece of paper, probably about 4 or 5 minutes outside of the property we were going, because the Dalits got property, and they wanted a blessing. So she hands me a piece of paper in Pali. I looked at it as we're bumping along, and I looked at her, and Dore said, "Oh, you're doing good, you're doing good." And I'm like, what? So again, we got out of the car, and it happened. I was able to step up with her by my side, over and over and over again. Being pushed, being led, and being held over and over again. She knew her students. She knew all of you. And gave us subtle and not so subtle opportunities for the ego to lay it all down. Sometimes hard lessons, but boy, did she get it across. There were a few times I wasn't so sure about what and even why I was still at Heartwood. And it always came back to, if not this, then what? And there was never an answer to the then what. So I stayed. The winds would pass, and I was still standing. As many of you know, Venerable would get the signal, and we were often running to that signal. And that would happen during the Dharma talk. That would happen to projects that we stepped into. Right, Venerable Grace? The signal. And we would just trust that that was where we were going to go. Now, sometimes there was a few bumps on that signal, a few whiplashes on that signal. But we knew it was significant to the Dharma, and that that was the very thing that was flowing through her. We started a Dharma study with our Buddha master, thanks to Rinpoche, Zazizuma, and Venerable. It was just a small group of us. It was actually just the monastics. And then it started to grow and grow. And pretty soon Venerable says, "I'd like to stop by. Can I stop by?" And we said, "Sure." And before you know it, she was leading the charge. And we're so grateful for that, because she made that teaching alive. She made that teaching penetrate us in ways that we could never do on our own. The last thing that happened that I remember with her is a week or so before she died. I was over there and I was going to give her a shower. And so got in the shower, and somehow the shower head went ping, ping. Sorry, Kay. It was a mess. And I said to her, because there would be times when things like that would happen, I'd say, "Well, that's a chapter we could write about." And there were many chapters like that. So I looked at her and I said, well, and there were many. I think we started with one chapter, went to 10, 20, 40. That's chapter 16, Venerable. 60, I mean. So that last shower, I looked at her and I said, well, I think that's chapter 100. And she said, well, then that's a wrap. And 1 week later, she took her last breath. And so it has been a true gift and honor to be on the journey with Venerable Pannavati. Just take a minute and consider why you're sitting here today, why you chose to come. Today is also a day to acknowledge the depth of our loss. She was a teacher of great clarity and steadiness, and her passing leaves a space that is felt by many. Yet her teachings continue in the practice that she embodied, in the ordinations she supported, in the projects she developed, locally, nationally, and across the world, and in the shared commitment of those who carry this forward. That is us. That is us. The very people you stood with, connected with. So today we do remember and give thanks and hold to one another in care. In the spirit, I invite you to sit with whatever arises during this time. Grief, gratitude, silence, or stories of her kindness, remembrances in a way that feels right to you. And so again, we are honored to be joined today by her family, monastics, students, and friends from near and far, and grateful to everyone who is watching on live stream. Whether you sat with her in person or were nourished by her teachings at a distance, your presence here is a part of a keeping her life and work alive. So before we start down the path of the program, although this is part of it, I'd like us to just take a minute to come present to this place and time, to welcome in her very spirit Venerable Pannavati, allowing you to settle with an open heart and with compassion. So your program will be your guide, and as I said, there'll be various stories, definitely more music, and a true celebration. Thank you for being here.
This body is not me. I am not limited by this body. I am life without boundaries. I have never been born, and I have never died. Look at the ocean and the sky filled with stars, manifestations from my wondrous, true mind. Since before time, I have been free. Birth and death are only doors through which we pass sacred thresholds on our journey. Birth and death are a game of hide and seek. So laugh with me, hold my hand. Let us say goodbye. Say goodbye. To meet again soon. We meet today. We will meet again tomorrow. We will meet at the source of every moment. We meet each other in all forms of life.
Hello, everybody. My name is Atasha, and we are here today to honor a woman that was a lot of things to a lot of people, but most importantly, she was my mother. I was trying to figure out what to say because I'm not a person of many words. And I listened to, the stories, and My mother was something else. I had something all planned to say, but I'm just going to touch on some of the things that Soma spoke about. Anyone who knows my mother knows that she is horrible with her telephone. You may not get a response for days. And that was the nature of our communication as well. So sometimes I have to call and text Soma or somebody, what's going on with my mother? Because she's not answering me. However, in that, that was never taken personally because me and my mother have a connection that transcends time and space. And somehow, I was born with many of the things that you all learn in your teaching, you know, that she has taught or spoke about. And I don't know how that is, but I was just born with a certain peace, a certain integrity, the ability to extend grace and gratitude, and love, which is what my mother was to me, is to me. And I was talking to my oldest daughter, who could not be here today because she recently gave birth, about the different steps of grief. And while I do believe that, you know, she's just in another place that's just not here. Again, she's my mother. And so I have highs and lows. And last week I did make an obituary for her. I do have a few copies for anyone that wants to have one, but mainly it's filled with information that you know, because my family does not know everything that she has done. What you don't know is a lot of the things that she has done prior to this, and it's equally as full. I do not know how in this lifetime my mother was able to accomplish so much. It's very large shoes to fill, and the great thing about my mother is that she never made me feel like I had to fill her shoes. My mother played piano, as you know, but my mother never was taught that. My mother learned to play by ear at a very young age. And growing up, we stayed in church all the time. We lived in church. But the one thing about my mom is that when she's dedicated to something, that people, if she finds out that you're not on board with the task, then, you know, she has work to do. And you can deboard the ship. And so, with that being said, it's kind of how she ended up here. There was a woman at my church who devoted her life every time the doors opened. Everything the pastor wanted, waited on hand and foot, and somewhat to her detriment because it put her in a financial situation. And at that time, my parents built homes for a living, so they had money. And my mother was aware of the 10% tithe that my parents were put it in church. And she advocated on behalf of this woman and was told, this is no place of charity. And that very day was the day we left that church, because my mother said, if you can't get charity from church, where do you get it from? So it spun off. Now, my mother's always done something different. I remember when I was young, my mother found her African roots. She had an African name. She started there. It's just been a long journey to get here. But what I want to say to you all is I'm very grateful for every face that's here today. I want to especially thank Ms. Kay and tell you that I love you so much. And to Soma and the nurse that was able to be there when my mom took her last breath. I'm so grateful that she was surrounded by love. And it was very difficult, when I got the phone call from my mom, she was going to be on hospice. I'm like, okay. Because, it's just so many times, my mom has been tired for a while, but she just like the Energizing Bunny. She just keep going and keep going and keep going. So I'm like, she's not going nowhere. But I'm grateful that I got to see her before she passed. I got to spend time with her, also got to give her a bath and, do those type of things. I would be untruthful if I said that I wish if I said I'm okay, because I wish I had more time with her. But again, thank you so much for being here today, and I'm very appreciative.
To Pannavati, December 31st, 2025. My teacher is a river, no serene crystal mountain lake she. They are cold, deep, rushing, powerful, and muddy. That is where the lotus grows. Imagine my life where there no you, no marvelous existence, poorer, paler, emptier. It feels like magic, crazy, lucky serendipity, but I know that it is karma. Ever, I wanted to be a saint. You have taught me the perfection of imperfection. The Japanese say wabi-sabi. Today, a holy being told you to peer deeply into the dark expanse. Yesterday and forever, this is what you told me. In the darkness of the depths of the river live the seeds that blossom into light. I watch you becoming softer. The mighty river has spurned its rapids, shed its currents, is flowing gentler with God's speed toward its source. What a splendid, vastly different land your river has carved in this continent of samsara. What a rich, fecund delta it has created, where it will spill its seeds of Dharma. Your Dharma seeds we will sow and cultivate and reap forevermore. This is our vow.
Venerable Pannavati, Karuna, Terry. That's who signed the refuge certificate which stands on my home altar as evidence of the Buddhist journey that began for me when I met Venerable Pannavati in 2018. One of the many titles carried by this remarkable woman who I had the pleasure and great fortune to know and study with. Meet Venerable was to be greeted by a bright, welcoming smile that she shared freely and often, especially with newcomers to the Sangha. After a welcome like she extended and the Dharma that she gave, who would not come back? She displayed childlike enthusiasm, curiosity, and energy for whatever she saw to be the next right thing, proceeding without any hindrance in that direction, with the rest of us faithfully in tow. To be around her, to work with her in any fashion, was to know that we weren't going halfway. She was extremely resolute and tireless when it was time to do something. For Venerable, our lives are a classroom for the Dharma. She modeled that for us every day. She would often say, all worldly Dharma is Buddha Dharma. She would often talk about how exciting it was to find a new flaw or some new way to look at herself, and to know that seeing it was the beginning of being able to correct it. She shared her shortcomings with us from the Dharma seat, letting us know that self-honesty was critical to identifying and correcting our flaws, and that this was 90% of the work for Dharma practitioners who would make progress towards the goal. She took to heart her master's teaching. Don't fear making mistakes. Fear not correcting them. She was fearless, which meant she saw clearly all of our fears and quietly worked with us to help us overcome them. whether we knew it or not. She saw the gold in each of us and worked diligently to bring it out, sometimes with an overt challenge, sometimes more covert. That might mean, for example, someone would be asked to join choir who didn't think they could sing, and eventually learn to be okay with singing backup, only to be shocked when asked at some point later to sing the lead on a song at a future Sunday Dharma, something she thought we could handle, in which we usually thought was a huge stretch. Sounds like that classic bait and switch, doesn't it? She wasn't so much concerned about the quality when she put you up in front of the Sangha to sing for Sunday Dharma, though she worked hard to bring that quality out in rehearsal, even setting up individual time to coach and help us over the rough spots when needed. In the end, she only cared that you would find some piece of gold in yourself and overcome a little of your self-doubt and conquer a little of your fear. And isn't that the reason we all come searching for a teacher in the first place? To help us be all we can be and realize the truth of the Dharma. One of her favorite sayings was, "Don't stake a claim on your inadequacy." In other words, don't let a belief in your inadequacy, which is usually false, dictate play and limit your abilities or your endeavors, and especially what you could offer to others. Once again, a Dharma lesson. The singing was secondary, although she loved when it was good. One Sunday evening, after I had delivered a solo singing performance for the Sangha, Venerable texted and said she could see my fearlessness coming through. I understood what she meant. It was the beginning of my journey to fearlessness, a journey which continues to this day. In the Dharma hall, where she sat on the Dharma seat, which she did twice weekly for all the time I knew her, all of life seemed to course through her. No matter what her body was feeling like beforehand, no matter how tired she might have been from a sleepless night, she was as clear as a bell as soon as she got on that seat, and often spoke for longer than the allotted time. She was a former Pentecostal Christian and would often tell us that in their meetings, all night was all right. She knew that what came from her in the Dharma seat was not of her, that she served as a vessel for the truth. She would often say she got a signal for what was needed, often that day, and sometimes on the way to the Dharma hall. Venerable lived life to the fullest. She saw very few hindrances when she had a vision for what could be great. This was sometimes challenging for us, for those of us whose minds would immediately spring onto the detailed implications of what she was looking at. As an example, an abandoned 4-story resort hotel on a lake in Hendersonville, North Carolina, built at the turn of the 20th century, and empty for over a decade, eventually became the centerpiece for Heartwood Refuge, and a thriving center for retreat and gathering for Buddhist groups and aspirants worldwide. Turns out that I only lived 3 miles away after moving to Hendersonville in 2018. Later that year, I began attending Sunday Dharma. I didn't know anything about Buddhism then, but the depth of the teaching caught my attention. It made sense, and I found it helpful. Now, 8 years later, Heartwood has become the centerpiece of my life. Could it be that I moved to Hendersonville to meet Venerable and learn Dharma at Heartwood? I lived close to Venerable's home, so when the time came that it wasn't good for her to drive anymore, I would pick her up for Dharma. These rides happened 4 to 5 times a week. Turned out to be a favorite time for each of us. As I wasn't involved in the inner workings of Heartwood at the time, we were free to simply enjoy the time together, just chatting or having a Dharma discussion. Sometimes I would hear a show on NPR radio on the way over to pick her up. And knowing that it would be something that would interest her, I would rewind it to play it when I picked her up. You can do that with XM radio. Last year, we started going to movies together. She wanted to see a certain action film that had just come out, and the nuns wouldn't go with her. So she asked me to go. It turns out we both loved action films with martial arts scenes because of our martial arts backgrounds. So when a new action movie came out, we went to see it in IMAX. She'd be so thrilled with the experience, leaning forward with rapt attention, sometimes critiquing whether she thought anyone could have survived that beating. She loved Brad Pitt, and we got to see the movie F1 together, which is about Formula One racing. Of course, she was recalling her drag racing days during that one, another of the many lives of Pannavati. She had a spiritual experience during the ending race scene, as I recall. She was somewhere else when we left the theater. Driving home from F1, I put the car in sport mode to keep the experience going. Then there was driveway Dharma, an experience many of us encountered. If you were bringing Venerable home at the end of the day, we came to know that there would likely be driveway Dharma. Sitting in the driveway at the Hermitage, finishing a discussion already in progress, or beginning a new one. This might sometimes last for minutes or even hours. Again, for Venerable, all night is all right. This would be the time when she would often share some of her greatest insights and views on the Dharma, her recent experiences, her relationship with her master, what needed to be done to move things forward with Heartwood, etc. Venerable loved nice things, too. She had her share of nice things throughout her life. As her daughter said, she made money. In her day, the height of opulence for someone who made it in the U.S. was a shiny Cadillac, and she eventually got hers. Later, as a monastic, she would joke that now she gets the cars people don't want anymore, often decades old, lacking many modern features. But having an eye for nice things, she would marvel at the new car features and was tickled from time to time to notice that my car would raise the steering wheel when I got out, or display an overhead view of the car when parking or backing up, or project a lighted image of the car's logo on the ground next to the door to aid in entering. But she would caution us, you can have your things, just don't let your things have you. She was speaking about attachment, and from the Dharma we know that when we attach, we suffer. Venerable never wanted any of us to suffer, but she also knew that suffering was inevitable in the world we live in. Much of our suffering, it turns out, comes from our own mistakes. To that she would say, learn, correct, do what you can to make things right, but at all costs, move on. Venerable's main interest throughout her life was always that of service and practice. no matter what spiritual system she was engaged in. She stressed over and over that learning religious doctrine and scripture alone did not help us, that we must put into practice in our lives, and learn its true lessons there. It's common in Buddhism for students to ask the teacher, "What dharma should I have? What's the best dharma for me?" Often she would reply, "One you will practice." She encouraged us to understand the path we're on, know where it's leading, and to reflect periodically on where we are along that trajectory. I'm only now starting to realize and embrace what she saw for all of us: fearlessness. She prepared us all for this moment. Her words, her phrases, and her teaching are the playlist of our lives. What more do we need? Venerable was truly on a mission in this life, a quest for the truth, wherever that quest would take her, and she was happy to take us with her if we would go. She said we should always be willing to overlook a slight and tolerate a fault. In this way, nothing is personal, and we don't get our feelings hurt or want to hurt others. There's so much freedom in a life lived in this manner, and Venerable demonstrated it for us every day. When it was time for her to leave, she was ready to serve. Godspeed, Venerable. We're grateful you passed our way. Thank you.
Venerable touched us all. Every one of us in this room has been touched by that wise being. And we've heard wonderful things about her story, how she affected Soma, how she affected Joe. And what I'd like to do with you all right now is take you where Soma led you in the realization of how did she actually touch you? In what way? In what did you learn from your experiences with Venerable? And for those of you online who are watching this after the fact, she's still out there on YouTube. You can still be touched. But for those of us who have actually had personal experiences with Venerable, I would like for us to take just a few short minutes to go inside, to go to our contemplative, meditative place, to drop off all thoughts that are what you're going to do when you leave today. Anything that's weighing on your mind, just leave all that stuff, put it on the ground. You can pick it up later. And now, let us take this opportunity to go deeply. Feel free to close your eyes if that's comfortable for you, or just develop a soft gaze on something in front of you. And allow yourself to remember the chapters in your life that Venerable was a part of. Remembering things she said,
things she did and modeled and walked out in the world that you were witness to. Things that surprised you about her, about yourself. What were those things that she offered, that you experienced, and that have changed you, that have opened up portals of spirituality that you might not have been able to open in this life without that wise one coming across your path? So I'm going to go quiet for a few moments here and just let each of us sort through, look for those gems that Venerable left in your life. Look a little deeper. And now, with those gems that you have looked at, allow yourself to see the qualities that were opened by that, and give yourself the gift of a recommitment to walking out your own dharmic path with her example for us. Give yourself a new commitment. Feed those qualities, those wonderful, uplifting qualities that she left as gems in you. Take them with you today and walk them out with her as your inspiration. What did you learn from Venerable? And how might you live that and act that out in this very life? When I did that very exercise I just asked you all to do with me, a song came out. There were too many things that I learned from Venerable. I couldn't just choose one. And so I'd like to invite dear Sister Kadara to join me, and we're going to sing that song for you. Laying my own plans aside, support thwarting the plans of the other guy with loving hands and open eyes. I learned that from you. Seeing the beauty in the ugly, seeing the ugly in the beauty, knowing in truth it's all empty. I learned that from you. I learned that from you. You had a true Dharma map in your pocket, just here and just now and so new, with a true wisdom key to unlock it, planting seeds of compassion and kindness all along the way. I learned that from you every day. Seeing the truth with certainty, being still in this moment, never needing to speak, but speaking out with power when there's a need. I learned that from you. Greeting each feeling as a noble guest, never pushing the pain nor grasping what's best. This discriminating mind, oh, what a pest. I learned that from you. I learned that from you. You had a true Dharma map in your pocket, just here and just now and so new, with a true wisdom key to unlock it, planting seeds of compassion and kindness all along the way. I learned that from you every day. Your candle burnt its life away, drop by drop, to give its flame. You lighted each candle along the way. So many beings held in your embrace and washed with grace. Washed with grace.
Oh, washed with grace.
Letting go of needing to always be right, turning toward the darkness instead of the light, trusting that loss can awaken my sight. I learned that from you. Listening deeper than the spoken word, feeling grace in places that once felt absurd, releasing desires I once had preferred. I learned that from you. I learned that from you. You had a true Dharma map in your pocket, just here and just now and so new, with a true wisdom key to unlock it, planting seeds of compassion and kindness all along the way. I learned that from you every day. I learned that from you every day.
Venerable Pannavati was a force of nature.
I knew she was not ordinary right away. She actually scared me for a long time. It took me almost 6 months of living at Heartwood before I was courageous enough to ask for a one-on-one. She was like a mirror, and at that time, it was hard to look at the reflection. As I observed her and listened to her, I started to have a lot of curiosity about who her teacher was, because I knew it had to be someone pretty incredible. But I have to back up for just a minute, because what I want to highlight here is her path and what it took to walk it. As many here know, Venerable Pannavati was brought up in the Baptist church. She had an experience with Jesus at 6 years old, followed by other spiritual experiences which the church couldn't explain. So she started sneaking out to a Pentecostal church against her mother's wishes. She later followed a charismatic preacher and became a Christian pastor herself. Venerable stated that in 1985, she had a vision that led her away from the church onto her own path and entered into a 15-year dark night of the soul. Her aim was to try to find out who she was, what the meaning of life was, what the world was all about, and who and what God was. Over the course of her search, she also studied African religious practice, became a Taoist priest, and eventually came to Buddhism. Even after she became Buddhist, she studied in multiple traditions, including New Kadampa and Chan. While she ultimately ordained Theravada, she lived and taught from a non-sectarian perspective. She spoke of her time with different teachers over the years, all of whom she respected greatly and learned much from. I remember she spoke about a time with one of her teachers where she came to realize that she only had certain abilities when she was with her, and that to develop her own abilities, she had to move on. She spoke often about how she didn't just want to grovel at the altar, she wanted to become like the holy ones. I was struck by her innate knowing of what she had to do, to realize her great wish. Venerable met Master Sasi Suma Rinpoche, here with us today, somewhere around the mid-2000s. It was through her that Venerable met her final master, His Holiness Dorji Chang Buddha III. In 2008, Master Zazi Suma started a Dharma propagation tour to all 50 states to let people know that there was a living Buddha in this world, and to offer Dharma centers a newly released treasure book entitled His Holiness Dorji Chang Buddha III. Master Wanko Yi Dharma King had only recently been publicly recognized as the third incarnation of the primordial Sambhogakaya Buddha Dorji Chang, or Vajradhara. Vimalakirti was the first Nirmanakaya, or earthly physical body of this Buddha, and His Holiness Dorji Chang Buddha III was recognized as the second Nirmanakaya in this world. Master Zazi Suma came to embracing simplicity as part of this tour and encouraged Venerable's connection with the Buddha Master. Beginning in about 2019, Venerable started traveling to stay with Master and to meet His Holiness, and would bring several students with her each time. In 2021, His Holiness directed her to open an academy. Following that meeting, Venerable began to more fully transition Heartwood in that direction, despite the scarcity of published teachings by the Buddha Master in English. Along the way, she lost the support of many peers and students. However, she was undeterred. She learned, applied, and taught the key principles that His Holiness emphasized, including the importance of cultivating our behavior of body, speech, and mind, and the path to Bodhi. Venerable's faith and reliance were powerful and transformational. The long search was over. There was nowhere else to go. Having been a direct disciple of this most holy being, the last years of Venerable's life were rich with realization and insights that she shared in every exchange with others. Her generosity knew no bounds. She gave all she had, materially and spiritually. In fact, she was like a sieve which took its toll on her body. She lived and taught equanimity. Over the course of her life, she faced racism, sexism, abuse, criticism, abandonment, and difficult students. With each obstacle, she relied on her faith and transmuted and transformed pain into something beneficial and useful. She stated in an interview, effacement, the rubbing out of self, you do that in real time when you're in interaction with someone who's yelling and screaming at you and calling you vile names. And how you conduct yourself in that moment, think of them as your kind teacher because they give you the opportunity to train in patience and non-reactivity. And it helps to uproot this concrete sense of self that has to be placated, defended, and demanding respect. That's how you really learn. That's what I call practice. These stories taught so much. Some of the key things that stand out to me are the importance of fearlessness in the pursuit of truth and liberation. This path is not for the faint of heart. One will definitely meet many obstacles if they are cultivated correctly. She gave her fearlessness as a gift to everyone equally. That true dedication to the pursuit of the absolute truth can actually lead to the absolute truth. That discernment is required to clearly see what is unbeneficial to reaching the ultimate goal, and that sometimes it is necessary to leave behind what cannot take you there. The importance of and power inherent in deep faith in the Guru, Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. That selfless service to others is the path. That it is foolish to judge things from appearances alone. All appearances are constructions of our changeable, conditioned minds. In order to be free from suffering and uncover the truth, we must seize the essence of the teachings. We must trust in and rely on prajna. We must let go of what we think we know. Venerable would demonstrate this in the way that others talked about, how she would wait for signals to guide her. She was not using her ordinary thinking mind. And that nothing happens without many, many, many helps. Venerable could not have walked this path without her many physical teachers. His Holiness Dorji Chang Buddha III, Master Zazi Zuma Rinpoche, Venerable Pannavati, Venerable Karuna Dharma, Venerable Dr. Pragnayalak, Venerable Kelsang Gyatso Rinpoche, Roshi Bernie Glassman, Dr. Kevin O'Neill, Grand Master Chen Zong Long, and Supreme Master Ching Hai, as well as friends, students, and all the seeming obstacles that she transformed into teachers. Not to mention all the beings, down to every being that touched every meal that she ever ate. And finally, that the true source of refuge is within and not separate from anyone or anything. The Buddhas are beyond form and beyond language, and inseparable from our very nature. Venerable rained Dharma seeds all over this world. Their effects will never die. May we each maximize their potential in this most precious human life. May we not shy away from the light out of fear. Instead, may we steadfastly seek it giving all of what we think we are for the benefit of all beings. And to close, I wanted to share a prayer of homage that Venerable wrote to her master, Dorji Chang Buddha III, entitled Homage to the Guru, Dorji Chang Buddha III. Namo Di Sancho Dorji Chang Fo. Namo Di Sancho Dorji Chang Fo. Namo Di Sancho Dorji Chang Fo. You whose mind is none other than that of Shakyamuni Buddha, the world-honored one, are a repository of living treasure for all beings to delight in. In Nirmanakaya form, you came to this world to correct what was upside down. In an unfortunate century filled with confusion, untold living beings were liberated. Returning to Sambhogakaya form of great bliss and power, you teach those with affinity for your voice, and they receive sublime understanding. Thus, our hearts are filled with inspiration and deep respect. Through the sound of your Vajra voice and our penetration of meanings, may the single essence of the 84,000 dharmas which cure worldlings' ills be realized. So with all sincerity, I prostrate and offer gratitude from the depths of my heart and pray. May those whose conditions have not matured, or who hear but cannot be taught, be compassionately held and guided to such a one as yourself, now or in the future, that their 3 karmas may enter yoga and realize the fruit of true liberation. May my eyes never leave their suffering until auspiciousness prevails.
Venerable had a way with words. It was a beautiful prayer she wrote, but it was one of many. Being the last person who talks, usually you kind of probably have written down something that some people have already said, but we're just going to go with it. Music. I was asked to speak about music, but what do I know about music? Not much. Yet, it was a very large part of Venerable's life and our practice at Heartwood. It was a way in which I and many others, a lot of you, connected with Venerable, and on a level we didn't even know existed. All we know is that our lives were blessed and changed because of it. Venerable started playing piano at a very young age, and her favorite was Chopin. But you had to play Mozart first before you could get to Chopin, and she would talk about that. She also sang backup to Nina Simone. Did you guys know that? Yeah, our teacher's got cred. She's pretty cool. She also started to pursue a career, or at least training, to sing opera. But one summer, she actually went home and sang gospel and all summer long, and ultimately ruined her chance of being able to continue pursuing a career as an opera singer. The teacher wouldn't even let her stay in class. He basically shunned her at the door. And it's because singing gospel puts too much wear and tear on your vocal cords. But this didn't stop her. She continued to play piano and the organ and sing at church, and inevitably, of course, would become the music director. She actually thrived in this environment, so much so it became home. Everything she did was devoted to the spiritual path, and as she progressed in wisdom, the outer form, or the tradition, changed. Yet later, she continued to cultivate the music that was closest to her heart, the song of worship and praise. There's a line in the King of Prayers that says, "With infinite oceans of praise for you, and oceans of sound from the aspects of my voice, I sing the breathtaking excellence of Buddhas and celebrate all of you gone to bliss." This was the heart of Venerable. This was her life. She used to say all the time, now you gotta say it with me for the third time, if it's all night, all right. She got that from her Pentecostal days, but boy, did she have that attitude all the way up until the end. She would soar, I'm not kidding, at around 2 a.m. That was her day time, was 2 a.m. This was her power hour. And to have tried to have stopped her would have been a crime. Sometimes, most of the time, when we would travel for a retreat or an event, she'd be usually up in the middle of the night singing, revering holy ones. And usually it would be the same one over and over and over again. It was sweet and gentle, contemplative. Now, this didn't happen just at night. This was her a lot of the time. And sometimes it was soft, so soft, you could barely hear. People in the back would be like, speak up. You have to at a Dharma, because she would get so like this. Other times, she was clapping and stomping in double time and up in the rafters. It seemed as if there was no limit to how she could and would express her love for the holy ones. And if you were lucky enough to be in her orbit during this time, you may have just gotten a glimpse of what holiness tastes like. I think it was about 7 or 8 years ago, Dharma Voci started. Yes, okay. And was established as a Buddhist choir at Heartwood Refuge on Old Osceola. Now, I wasn't here for the origination, but I have heard some very funny and wonderful stories about how it all began. Apparently, in the early days, the choir was rehearsing, and this was before Venerable was the music director, and it was a kind of a side gig started by our very own Maureen Hall, and they were rehearsing, and it wasn't too good. So I think Venerable was walking by and overheard and walked in and was like, no. She basically said, if we're gonna sing, and it's gonna be good. And from then on, she became the music director of Dharma Voci, a Buddhist choir at Heartwood Refuge. I love this story because she always found her way back to music, even when she would renounce it. It continued to cross her path. It was as if this was part of her purpose, part of her mission of saving sentient beings. Dharma Voci would continue to grow, refine, and touch the lives of many. It became an integral part of Heartwood and how Venerable would share the Dharma. It was especially so when Venerable had the opportunity to take her students in the choir to California to meet the Blessed One, His Holiness Dorje Chang Buddha III, her master, our master, and sang him an original song. This was unheard of. When they walked into his room, His Holiness asked the other disciples to leave. This was an auspicious event indeed. Master Zazi Zuma Rinpoche accompanied Venerable Pannavati and the Heartwood Choir as they sang for the Buddha. She documented that the choir quickly assembled and sang a robust gospel-styled song called "The Dharma Stays the Same. It has never lost its power." Buddha Master immediately lit up. One could even see his head slightly nod to the rhythm. At the conclusion, he said that they should continue with this Western style. That if they had submitted a video during his birthday competition sponsored by the His Holiness Dorje Buddha III Culture and Art Museum, they would have definitely won. This was in 2021. An encouraging empowerment was given to Venerable and Dharma Voci. Not only did music shape her ministry, but now she was empowered by the Buddha to share this brightness with the world, to teach the five vidyas, to share. A new flame had been lit, and in the last years of her life, she worked tirelessly to fulfill this new mission. She was unwavering, confident, and devoted. Without knowing any of this, I joined Heartwood in the fall of 2022 and would end up singing and performing with the choir by the end of my first week. It didn't take long. I was fortunate to be with Venerable so often and so early. This is where I would get to know Michael Sebastian, our current choir director. His skill and kindness was the perfect match for Venerable. He could take her vision and bring it into reality. They were this dynamic duo, shaping us like a potter transforming clay. This was a huge blessing, and it continues to be. Some of the most valuable training I have ever received was in that choir practice. Laying down self was a requirement, and the expectation was excellence. She wouldn't have had it any other way. The lessons never ended. The Dharma didn't stop. She would remind us that we don't own or create anything, and that we are in service to all. This was the beauty of choir. This is how many notes become a single chord, living in harmony as one. Venerable had a power, and it carried through her voice. Her ability to arrange music and touch hearts was so simple, yet very effective. One of Venerable's most brilliant qualities was seeing the good in everyone. It didn't really matter who you were. If you came across her, she probably would have tried to get you into singing, to join the choir. She believed in everyone's ability to praise. She believed in everyone. Now, she was also very aware of all of our faults and how they limit us from reaching our potential. That's true. It's not like we could hide them. You know, you're out in choir and you don't want to be singing, and you know that she can see straight through you, and then she calls you up and what, you have to sing lead? Yeah, no, thanks. You know, I came here to meditate, you know? Look at a corner. No, Try talking in front of people. Try singing in front of people. But this is the importance, the beauty of a teacher, a guide or a mentor who has your best interest at heart. They know your flaws and love you anyway. And they do so as they sacrifice their own lives for yours, for ours. And she did that all the time. With her pointing, she would help us correct our misbehaviors so that our lights could begin to shine. And after practice would be over, it was like I was on cloud 9, suspended by the buoyancy of joy and lack of thought. Music has a way of doing that. It takes you out of the ordinary mind, and it propels you into states beyond what we can imagine. It's just like chanting a mantra or Sutta recitation, recollection of the Buddhas. We know this to be a method of the Dharma. It has a way of uplifting and inspiring, It collects our minds and centers it so that when the true Buddha Dharma is shared, it can penetrate deeply and have a lasting effect on all of our lives to come. Venerable understood this and used the method of music to share the wealth and joy of the Dharma to bring others onto the path towards liberation. We were told by the Buddha Master to write original songs, and for the past couple of years, this is what the Venerable began training us to do. Meaning is everything, and words shape the trajectory of the mind and the one who is listening. Venerable arranged an album, Invocation, in the spring of 2024. The album was designed to reflect a practice of invocation, supplication, devotion, purification, and dedication, so that we may align our three karmas with that of the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. This was especially helpful to those who do not have a yidam practice. It was one of Venerable's final wishes that Dharma Voci continue and thrive, staying steadfast in the mission, to be a resource to practitioners, to be an uplifting thought, to be a helping hand, to be a transcendent sound, to be a shoulder to cry on, to be a mirror, to be a friend, to be a voice. She built an impenetrable foundation for us to work upon and to continue her good work. So on behalf of Dharma Voci, I say that we will, and we are honored to be her hands and her feet. So to close, here's an original song written by the one and only Venerable Pannavati, Just an Illusion.
Thank you. That wouldn't have been good. Third time's a charm.
Okay.
I so want it to be perfect for y'all. I hope my memory stays with me. Okay. When the darkness comes and the shadows appear, when my heart is failing, gripped by crippling fear, when hopelessness is in the air and my back's against the rail, can't talk, can't walk, mine says I've already failed. That's when I remember false appearances invading my mind, sense spaces and all their projections locking me in space and time, accommodating what the day brings, free from attachment to the outcome, but in equanimity, based on true reality. I can overcome adversity. Never last, but tough people do. When I incline my mind this way, it changed my midnight into day. As I remember, false appearances invading my mind, sense spaces and all their projections locking me in space and time. I don't know the outcome, but my mind says it's gonna be crazy. But Dharma says, see the empty nature, and it won't faze me. No, it won't faze me. To soar above conditions, watch what you think about. There's no solutions to your problems. Don't be hindered by doubt. Handling the ups and downs of life becomes a skill we master. Knowing everything is temporary dispels the darkness faster. As I remember illusions, false appearances invading my mind, sense spaces and all their projections locking me, locking me, locking me in space and time. It's just an illusion, false appearances invading my mind, sense spaces and all their projections locking me, locking me, locking me, locking me in space and time.
Wow. That was Pannavati. That truly was Venerable Pannavati. And you never know when that's going to come out. So as we come together to close, it was the bookends, the opening and the closing act here. There's a feeling many of us share of love, of gratitude, and of continuing. Our beloved abbot is no longer here in the way we have known her, in the way we choose kindness, in the way we serve others, in the way we cultivate the teachings, in the way we remember to come back to the breath, to the knowing heart. This was her gift to us. Not just words, not just teachings, but a way of being. And that does not end. So today, rather than holding on, grasping attachment, we honor her by trusting the Dharma she lived. Let us gather now the goodness that has arisen here, both here in this room and around the world. The love in this room, the care, the remembrance, the sincerity of our hearts, and offer it gently. May this merit reach our beloved abbot like a soft light on a clear path. May it support her wherever conditions now unfold. May she be at peace, at ease, and free. And as she always has done, may that blessing extend outward with us to all beings known and unknown, near and far, in all worlds. May all beings be held in compassion. May all beings be free from suffering. May all beings awaken. And for us who remain, may we carry forward, not in sorrow, but in quiet courage, to practice, to love, to show compassion, and to wake up, for goodness sakes. Let us just take a minute together now until I don't have a bell, until I ring the bell, which is over there. Just take a minute to take in the energy of this wonderful gathering, the beauty, the joy, the growth, the learning, the seeds. Thank you all for coming. And before we end, I would like to thank First Congregational Church for opening their doors, inviting us in. They, without a second breath, they agreed when we talked to them. I'd also like to thank the team, the new team now, that we step forward, for bringing us all together, the joy and the celebration that we must have, because she would have it no other way. I would also like to invite you all for a reception at the monastery, and on the back of your program is the address. It will be a time for fellowship and time to just share the stories that we all have. So with that, we'll close with a final chant. This will be Venerable's song and her voice.